2016, his political news website, Ocean County Politics, quickly became a must-read for its in-depth reporting about local government, campaign finance, and investigations of public officials in Ocean County, New Jersey. Stories first broken by Davin on Ocean County Politics are frequently cited by larger media outlets, including NJ.com, Politico, Insider NJ, MSNBC's Rachel Maddow show. Just so that. Okay. In 2017, he launched Oprah Machine, a statewide freedom of information portal that automatically publishes public records, requests, and responses, the first website of its kind to serve New Jersey. I'm going to just give a little aside here. Kevin Kennedy, who is just recovering right now, but he's still with us
He's watching.
He's watching, okay. Kevin kept talking in meetings that I was at about Oprah. Anyway, it's this Oprah, not that. And Nancy's going to chime in a moment and tell us how Oprah really can work for the common good of people who otherwise would have no recourse. It is the New Jersey Open Public Records Act, therefore Oprah, the first production and deployment of the open source Olivetti platform that targeted a single U.S. state rather than an entire country. In 2019, he received the Excellence in Local News Award from the Center for Cooperative Media at Montclair University in the Innovative Local category for his work on the Oprah Machine. He also recently graduated from Stockton University with a BA in Political Science and is now working toward an MS in Data Science and Strategic Analysis at Stockton. So, Devin, we want to thank you thank you so much for taking the time to be with us tonight and sharing your expertise.
Wow, thank you. Carla, I appreciate the intro. Pat, other members of the club, thank you for giving me such a warm welcome. It is wonderful to be joining you here tonight in Waretown. It looks like you put together an excellent club. It's clear that you're growing. You've got some great momentum behind you. And I hope you'll carry that on as we continue into campaign season. So I am Davin Rossi. I am the proprietor of several interesting local websites. Primarily my work these days has focused on government transparency and Oprah, which we're going to be getting into. And if anybody followed the race for Lacey Board of Education, I was a candidate up until last night. Unfortunately, things didn't go my way, but not unexpected, knowing how local politics go. But that's what we do in politics. We pick ourselves up, we keep on going, keep fighting for our values, and advocating for what's best for our community. And I think that's something that everybody here can get behind. So the topic of our discussion tonight is going to center around Oprah. As we heard in the intro, it's often confused with Oprah Winfrey, the celebrity. If you want to talk about that, Oprah, I'm sorry, that isn't the talk. This isn't the talk for you. But so we have this law on the books in New Jersey called the Open Public Records Act, and that was signed into law in 2002. And it replaced this earlier version of the law that we had. It was called the Right to Know law. And it really didn't have as much teeth as the current Open Public Records Act does. And essentially, the main premise of this law, and there's equivalent laws in other states, and we also have the Freedom of Information Act on a federal level. We live in an open society. We live in a democracy. We need to be able to make informed decisions about our public officials, our government agencies. And in order to be fully informed when we go to the ballot box to vote, either in June or in November, we need government to be transparent and open up their books and records so that we can make use of them. And the term record is actually very broad under the meaning of Oprah. It can be anything from a town budget, it could be government employee emails. In a political campaign context, you have voter lists, the list of people that are getting vote by mail ballots, even the rosters of poll workers and all sorts of stuff from the Board of Elections are all open for the public to obtain. And this is very crucial because we need to be fully informed. And I think as American citizens, as New Jersey residents, we need to have every piece of data that is available to us especially in this era of fake news and disinformation online. I think it's great. We have, with this revolution of technology in the 21st century, it has democratized access to having a platform to be able to publish. It's what made it possible for me to launch Ocean County Politics, where I was writing and covering a lot of these races since 2016. Earlier this year, I actually decided to take a little bit of a step back from that, just because I'm taking on so many side projects that have just been growing faster than I could have anticipated. So I do hope to return to writing articles, when I have the time again, when I'm a little bit more stable and calm down with all this stuff. But I really enjoyed that experience because I got to get out into the community and I got to interview a lot of great candidates. I got to see a lot of interesting things, and I also got to see some not so good things too. How about our Ocean County Republican chairman, George Gilmore? In probably just a few short weeks, he'll be off to federal prison for however long that sentence is going to be. And certainly that was a dark chapter for Ocean County. And I think even sadder, Mr. Gilmore, he has his own demons to battle now at this point. I certainly, I feel sorry for the man. He's going to have a rough stay in federal prison. But, as they say, if you can't do the time, don't do the crime, because we are a nation of laws. So, my experience with Oprah and transparency, I first got into it with my work to reform the Lacey Board of Education. That has always been something that's been near and dear to my heart. Since I was a senior in high school, that's actually when I first got involved in the Open Public Records Act in 2015. And as I was telling some of the members earlier before my talk, we were investigating a situation in Lacey where we just had a terrible lack of oversight from our Board of Education, which unfortunately, there's a lot of good people that volunteer on school boards, and our public schools are so important. So this is why this is such a crucial issue, especially with these new concerns about school funding. But I first used Oprah to seek accountability from my local school board in Lacey. We had a solar panel project that was badly mismanaged, where we overborrowed nearly $9 million. And once those bonds are signed and the bond counsel gets paid, you don't get to just go back and say, hey, we made a mistake, we'd like to get a refund on these bonds. So we're still going to be paying interest on the mismanagement of that project. And unfortunately, we had the state comptroller's office come in, they subpoenaed, they investigated, but it really wasn't enough to get that accountability. So what Oprah offers to the public is another mechanism for seeking accountability and transparency. And those two items, transparency and accountability, they go hand in hand. You really cannot have one without the other. How are we going to hold officials accountable for their past decisions if we do not have an objective record that anybody, regardless of who they are, who their party is, can seek those records and make use of them? So that's why Oprah is such a valuable tool. So I said at the outset that the law was passed in 2002. It was actually signed by an acting governor at the time because it was such a political hot potato. We had a situation where legislators could very well be influencing a law that might one day hold themselves accountable. So, it really was a sticky situation in 2002 when they were going to pass this law. But, it wasn't perfect because if you look at comparable freedom of information laws in other states, New Jersey is actually pretty remarkable because the Oprah law, as good as it is for some things, there are a lot of things that you can't get with Oprah. So, for one, the court system is completely exempt from Oprah. That means Superior Court in Toms River, all the way down to municipal court here in Waretown. You cannot file an Oprah request with any branch of the judiciary in New Jersey. I find that to be rather problematic as a matter of public policy because you really are at their mercy. You have to use their particular paper form. You have to go through their particular process. And I've had positive experiences for the most part in obtaining court records, but there still is a lot of friction between citizens and their government in that area with the court system. They did improve if I'm going to criticize them, I have to give them one positive. This past October, they did just open up all court filings in New Jersey. You can go on njcourts.gov, and you can actually see all civil litigation, only really civil cases. We're not really at a point where criminal cases are online yet. You can go and pull all active civil cases, either involving an individual or a business. You can see, for example, one thing that I have been particularly active in is Oprah litigation. So if they do deny your request or they refuse to provide the information, within 45 days, you have the right to go to court and sue for the release of those records. Now, for a lot of people, if you look at economic inequality and stuff like that, people are concerned they can't afford legal fees. What really is absolutely remarkable about the Oprah law that has allowed a lot of important cases to progress is the fact that under New Jersey's Oprah law, it does not cost a citizen a dime to file a lawsuit against the government to compel them to release information that they're trying to keep under wraps. So what will happen is we have something under the statute, under NJSA 471A1, it's called the fee shifting provision. So if you are victorious and you are what's called a prevailing party under Oprah, the government agency, which unfortunately is the taxpayers at the end of the day, will bear the burden of paying your legal fees and costs that you've incurred to file suit. So that's been very important because we actually just won a very crucial case in Monmouth County. We sued the entire Monmouth County government last summer. We took them to court. And the backstory with that was one of the old employees made a mistake. They failed to redact some information concerning their prosecutor, Christopher Graziani. And I don't know if you know this, his wife actually was just appointed by Governor Christie before he left as a judge in Ocean County. So his wife, the way politics works in New Jersey with political sausage making, she is now a judge in Ocean County. She's an attorney. I'm sure she's qualified. There hasn't really been any issues with her. Our disputes with the Monmouth County government. So what happened was, because they failed to redact that information, the Monmouth County government actually sought to punish the users of Oprah Machine. They instituted a new policy and they said, we will not respond to any requests just because they're filed via Oprah Machine. You can file the same request on paper and they'll answer it, but if you file it through my site, they're not going to respond. This was very problematic because if this was allowed to stand and the court sided with Monmouth County, it would be an existential threat to 3 years of our work to bring this platform out and roll it out to all 21 counties. And ultimately, it's just a disservice to the public because Oprah requests themselves are public information. The documents that are released are public information. So why not share them with the public? So that was the legal fight of our lives. And that took us from September of 2018 all the way till the end of this past May, when we got the ruling from Judge Lisa P. Thornton, the assignment judge in Monmouth County, and she rejected every single one of the county's arguments and ruled that they cannot deny a public records request just because it's submitted through our site. So that's how important it is, this legal fee shifting provision, because I'm a college student. I don't have thousands of dollars to go to court. I wish I did. I'm sure we all do. But that's really the public policy aspect of it, because you as a citizen, as a member of our society, can, in a David versus Goliath type of fight, you can stand against these government agencies. We beat the prosecutor's office, the county government, and their outside legal counsel, Republican 30th District Assemblyman Sean Key, who's the running mate of State Senator Singer. So, this is how we can hold power to account in New Jersey. That's just one case that we were involved in. I actually testified as an expert witness yesterday up in Bergen County in another Oprah case. I'm not going to get into the specific circumstances of that case because it hasn't been decided yet, but the substance of the legal dispute was an individual requested a list of all the people that were blocked from their town's Facebook page. That's another thing you can request under Oprah. So, if Ocean Township, if they decided to start blocking people from commenting on the town page, you could actually go and file an Oprah request asking for them to give you a screenshot listing the names of all the people they blocked, all the words that they blocked from appearing on their page, and that's something that's very anti-democratic to do, we have the vision of the Constitution, the principles that were embodied under the First Amendment, even though times have changed since 1776, when the founders were first contemplating this new vision for America, the times have changed, but the values haven't. Whereas back then, in the days of the Founding Fathers, they were writing written pamphlets and written books. Today, democracy has gone digital. We're using digital platforms. We're using social media, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. And those are the new public spaces where we need to have First Amendment rights. There's been some development of federal cases regarding the First Amendment implications of public officials blocking their critics on social media, but it's also an issue under Oprah. So we have examples on oprahmachine.com, which is the service that I run. Quite simply, what oprahmachine.com does, we maintain a centralized directory we have all 565 municipalities, we have all 21 counties, and our interns have been working on adding all of our school districts. I don't even have a number on all the school districts in New Jersey because there's so many between regular school districts, regional school districts. You've got educational service commissions. All these different layers of government. What we're doing is we're trying to demystify the process. So it used to be prior to the introduction of Oprah Machine in 2017, you would have to hunt around for your town's email address to send in an Oprah request. The slicker towns wouldn't even update their sites and wouldn't even have an email address. They might say, oh, you have to fax it to us. Or, oh, you have to use our written form. And some people, the counter argument to some of the stuff that I've said is they might say, oh, what's the big deal? Why can't you just fill out the paper form? What's the problem with that? Well, there is a problem. Because what if you wanted to request records from somewhere that's further away, or you're disabled and you can't go in and bring in that paper form? You have some sort of medical issue that might prevent you from doing that. You're a citizen too. Don't your rights matter? And then also, going back to economic inequality, if you had to mail in a paper form, you have to pay for postage. You have to go to the post office, or you have to walk out to your mailbox. So governments in New Jersey, unfortunately, I will qualify my criticism by saying there are good people out there in government. There are good clerks that are compliant with the law. A lot of them even support the work that we're doing, and I've been able to have some very candid discussions with them in the course of running this service. But unfortunately, whether it be political pressure or just this malfeasance that can fester in state and local government, especially, if you look at some of the scandals, the Christie administration, where they resisted Oprah requests for information that may have been politically damaging to them. Because of that, that's why we've had such problems with requests. And it was my experience dealing with my local school board, dealing with, the first Oprah complaints I filed against my local school board and then the Ocean County Prosecutor's Office. It took me 2 years to go through that whole process. But by the end of that process, we were able to get declarations either from the State Government Records Council or from judges of the Superior Court, where they came down and they said, no government agency, you cannot withhold this information. You violated state law by doing this. You must provide the records. And that, hopefully would be the outcome of a case that any of you would bring if you ended up being denied records. So our goal in creating this platform was to have a centralized, free, open, easy-to-use repository of public information. And what happens is, by default, when somebody registers for an account on our website, the records that they request are automatically published online. We have feeds of data for every town, so you can sign up and you can get alerts on your phone or your email every time there's a new Waretown Oprah request. So what we are doing is we are building a repository of public knowledge. So our website gets smarter and more useful to the residents of New Jersey the more people use our site. So it allows us to build this community of information, and this is what democracy is all about, because now with information flowing, whether you're just a concerned citizen or whether you're running a political campaign and you want to investigate a particular issue, we also have a lot of interest groups and nonprofits, that center on their particular issue. Like we have a group up in Monmouth County that deals with the opioid crisis and issues related to drug addiction. They're using our platform to investigate some of these individuals that are, they call them body brokers, where they run these fly-by-night drug clinic operations, and they prey on vulnerable addicts to get them into these treatment centers. There's been some scandals in Florida with the labs that they're using. There's been some criminal charges brought, you know. So what this project is an intersection of technology, democracy, and public policy. So there's a lot at play here in order to make our society a better place to live. So going back to Oprah Machine and how the platform works, since 2017 when we launched, we processed just under 6,000 requests for public information across all 21 counties of New Jersey. The biggest challenge for me has been, we have just been having to add server space like there's no tomorrow, because in the beginning we had such a demand for our platform, and we still do, that the site would go down because people were just requesting so much information. And this is information that's being liberated that previously was just in locked filing cabinets, on paper, in town halls and buildings, that was not accessible to the public. And we're opening this up. Our motto is opening up New Jersey government one request at a time. And you know, I certainly hope if this is something you're interested in, you can take a look at it. You can log on. It's oprahmachine.com, O-P-R-A machine.com. We also have we also just recently launched a pro tier of service. So some individuals might not want to publish their public records requests. For the most part, you know, we think our free accounts can do most of what someone's looking to do, but to help support our service and help you know, allow us to finance additional upgrades and deal with these issues, we do have a pro plan. It's $12 per user per month. We mainly get property management companies, real estate agents, you know, individuals like that have a high volume of requests beyond our limits on free accounts. That's something that they found to be useful. You know, so that is our service. Even if you don't want to make a request yourself, there is so much information on there. You may stumble upon something that you're interested in researching further. You know, and along that vein, what we've seen is people that have never been exposed to Oprah or public records before. It's so easy to share one of our users' requests on social media, on Facebook, Twitter, you know, your platform of choice. Someone will share that request and the documents, and that might start a discussion. It might start, you know, residents being interested in whatever that particular issue is. So I encourage you to check it out. The other thing that we're going to be launching in the near future, I'm currently writing a book. It's going to be called the New Jersey Public Records Guide, and it's going to be somewhat of a cookbook for your own Oprah requests. And we're going to go through every different category of record that is out there that you might be interested in researching. So it could be everything from a police report to 911 call data to voter lists. We will have this out there as a resource for the community and for our users so that they too will be able to make use of this powerful tool. So that's just about all I have for you tonight. I appreciate you giving me the opportunity to speak. And with that, if any of our audience members have any questions, I'd be glad to answer them. Yes?
How far back does your request for information go?
Yes, so that is something that's going to be dictated. New Jersey state government, they set limits on record retention, so they'll put regulations out and say, you know, for this document, you may have to maintain it for X amount of years. You know, this is just off the top of my head. I think typically emails, you've got at least 5 years back, maybe. Townships vary. You know, we had an Oprah lawsuit that was filed in Stafford Township by actually one of the members of the Stafford Conservatives, Mr. Liebencheck. He sued Stafford Township, and at the time they had the same law firm that represents Waretown, Dossie Murphy et al. Law firm. And one of their attorneys actually wrote back, and they claimed that their technology situation was so bad down there in Stafford Township that if they were to just produce an email log, which is a printout of the email inbox of a public official, they actually claimed in court filings that it would bring their entire township server crashing to a halt. It's ridiculous, I know. And thankfully, you know, the judge didn't agree with that. So, in theory, I guess to get to the heart of your question, in theory, you know, we have it on the books, you know, you should be able to get X amount of years worth of records, but in practice, depending on how helpful or how difficult that particular town is, they may not be so cooperative when it comes time to actually produce the record. So, you know, you can look, if you go on oprahmachine.com, you could actually look through other requests that people have made, just as a strategy for requesting records. If you make a voluminous request for, you know, years worth of information, they may try to come back and they can say, oh, you've requested, you know, 5 years worth of stuff. We're not going to process this unless you give us a special service fee. That's what they call it. And that was actually my first case against the Lacey Board of Education. They tried to, I asked for checks because we had, you know, another wacky thing going on in Lacey. We had our contracted attorney, our school board attorney, was getting health benefits and pensionable service as a contracted professional through the Board of Education. I thought this was pretty extraordinary. So what happened was, Oprah is also taken in construct with other laws like HIPAA that preclude the release of medical information and stuff like that. There's all, you know, about 25 exemptions to the law. So I couldn't get the health benefit information directly. So I had to request it indirectly by asking for the copies of checks that he was submitting to pay those premiums. And then we had irrefutable proof. Here's the checks that he signed, Mr. Stein, that showed he was getting those benefits. What happened is when I requested the checks, they said, oh, Gavin, we're not going to give you these checks unless you pay us this $85 special service.
Oh, your high school diploma.
Luckily they didn't do that. I got out of there with my diploma at least. But what they did is they said, okay, Gavin, give us this $85 fee. So I gave them their fee, and then the next day I filed a complaint against them. 2 years later, it took me from 2015 to 17 to actually get the ruling on it. They were ordered to refund me my money.
With interest?
I wish. I should have went for interest, but I didn't. The state kind of leaves a lot to be desired with their rulings. But, you know, I could have just not paid the fee and challenged it based on that, but I wanted to get those records. After the challenge, you know, there will be a delay if you go to challenge this stuff. So, you know, my suggestion would be, if you're requesting records, say if you wanted to get 5 years worth of records, maybe you request 1 year, and then maybe call up a friend and have them request another year. And then if it's individual requests coming from individuals, they have to treat those requests individually. They can't say, oh, all these people are requesting 1 year at a time, we're going to charge them the fee anyway. So there's all sorts of strategies, and that's actually, I'm going to be devoting a chapter to that in my upcoming book, some of those different strategies that you can pursue for requesting public records. It is kind of a game. It's a chess game, just like the game of politics itself. They're going to come back. They might say, you know, we want this, we want an extension, you know, and you always have to be ready to go back to them. Like, for example, I joined on in another Oprah case where they were suing to get Governor Christie's helicopter usage records for all the times he was getting around in his state helicopter on taxpayer dollars. And I'll tell you, among the worst agencies in the state is the New Jersey State Police, because what they'll do, Oprah allows them to ask for an extension. Usually, you can get most records within 7 business days, provided that they don't require an extension. What the state police does, they have a really slick records custodian that he'll just say, we've received your Oprah request, we want a 30-day extension. At the end of 30 days, what do? They come back, they want another 30-day extension. When I was asking for Christie's helicopter records, they did that for 6 months. And that was actually before I even had Oprah Machine. So it was incidents like that that led me to really create the platform. So I hope that answers your question.
It does, yeah.
Thank you. Yes, Nancy in the front.
Yeah, I just had a comment and a question.
Sure.
Actually, 2 comments. Sometimes you don't think, I talk to over to help me personally, but I know that with Kevin's help, actually. You know, as everyone knows, I lost my mom to Sandy. And there came to be a time when we went to our township committee to ask them to waive the exorbitant permit fees for rebuilding. And one of the things we found out is they kept no record of all the permit fees they took in from rebuilding from Sandy.
My goodness.
So having Oprah that request. And so that's an example of how Oprah can help people just personally in their daily lives. Also, if you all remember the posted posses that we did, where we were sending out the vote by mail applications last year to everybody, All of a sudden, we would go to the county clerk, and they weren't giving them out. They're like, oh, well, here's one, you know, and, but every time you go, you had to sign out for, you know, sign you were there. And then we started noticing the union campaign, all of a sudden they're doing the vote by, you know, vote by mail. So we Oprah, through the Oprah machine, was the first time I ever used it, a request for the sign-out sheets of people that were coming to the county clerk's office to get vote by mail forms. And there you had it. There was people finding out 50 at a time, 50 at a time, 50 at a time. They weren't us. So
Wow.
presented that to Mr. Covella. Well, I didn't choose it because she's mad. And that was another perfect example of these.
Jamie was running for freeholder.
Yeah. She got a bonus every time. She'll work next door. But so that was another perfect request to let me see the sign sheets for people. Because we go there, they don't start suffering. We're like, no, you didn't. You did. They knew what we were up to. And we were entitled to have this vote by mail form. And the question is also, can this be done anonymously?
Yes, I'm actually glad you asked that question because I didn't forget to cover that. OprahMachine.com, I may be a little biased because it's my own platform, but I believe we offer the best way of submitting an anonymous Oprah request. So the Oprah law that's been on the books since 2002, it has allowed anonymous Oprah requests, but there's some practical concerns about doing that. If you wanted to file an anonymous Oprah request and you were going to do it via paper, how are you going to go into the town clerk's office anonymously? They're going to recognize you, especially if you're somebody that's vocal in politics. And that's a problem. And there's also, when I was writing in Ocean County politics, we had a lot of anonymous sources. I know Trump likes to knock anonymous sources and say that they're fake news, but I can tell you a lot of my best stories that I've written about the George Gilmore FBI investigation, that I've written about a lot of the problems we've had in Ocean County, they all started with an anonymous source. I would never write a story just on anonymous sources alone. You always have to corroborate it. But in terms of having checks on power, anonymous sources are so important because we need people that are in these sensitive positions where they can face retaliation, such as police officers or government employees. We need them to be able to speak freely and know that their anonymity will be protected. So what Oprah Machine does, we actually wrote a post on our Oprah Machine blog about the steps that we take to protect our user privacy. So as a journalistic platform, we are protected by something that's called the New Jersey Shield Law. And what that does, that exempts our servers, our premises, they are all exempt from search warrants. If they suspect that we are somehow involved in criminal activity, they have to subpoena it. They cannot come up with a search warrant. So that's one way that we're able to protect our users. That Shield Law also protects me as the operator of the site from having to identify any of our anonymous email addresses or users. So what we do is when you register for an account on our site, we record your email address in our database, and we need that for sending you notifications, for confirming your account, and stuff like that. But it is our policy not to release any of that information, any of the personal information of our users. The other thing is, as I have a background in IT and technology, you may not be aware of this, but when you send an email, like if you're using just a plain old Comcast or AOL or even a Gmail account, there is something in your emails called an email header. And you don't see it when you're sending emails, but if you go in the technical aspects of your email program to look at those email headers, that could give away your IP address. And your IP address is a number that uniquely identifies your home internet connection or your cell phone on the internet. And if you were dealing with a pretty well-funded adversary, even like a county prosecutor's office or something, and they really wanted to retaliate against you, they could go to Comcast. They could go to your internet provider and they could say, hey, tell us who is the owner of this IP address, and then your anonymity is compromised and they can retaliate against you. So what Oprah Machine does, we maintain that information, but when we send your request on to the government agency, all they see is the Oprah Machine IP address. They will not see your personal IP address whatsoever. They will not see your personal email address. So what I caution people in terms of registering an anonymous account, we have a space where you can enter in your first and last name. You can enter in anonymous, you can say concerned resident. We actually get some pretty creative nicknames that our users come up with. So you can register, have that anonymous name, and your personal email address will never be published, and they will not be able to track you down. Now, there's...
We should come back to Oprah Machine, that's how we access it?
Yes, so what happens is, when you make a request through Oprah Machine, it generates a unique email address for each Oprah request, and that's all the government agency sees. And what happens is, because that email address has a unique code that identifies that request, our system on the back end, it automatically tracks, is it within the 7 business day due date? Is it your particular request, or is it someone else's? And it also makes it easier for the government agencies, because if someone is a staff member in a town clerk's office, all they have to do to respond to one of our requests is just hit reply on the email and attach the document. So we try to make this process easy and frictionless for everyone. So I certainly, in terms of anonymous accounts, I would also recommend, because a lot of commercial email providers are, engaging in some questionable privacy practices, like Gmail, they'll scan your emails for marketing and stuff like that. There's been data breaches where passwords have been getting out. If you really need to make a sensitive Oprah request, I would encourage you to consider registering with one of the secure email providers. Me personally, I use a service called Proton Mail. Their data is actually hosted off the shores of the United States in Switzerland and fully encrypted. So whenever somebody emails me, that's where it goes. And you can sign up there for free. So actually we have a lot of people that use that. The more privacy conscious users of our site, they'll register for one of those accounts, and then they'll make an Oprah machine account with it. And even if they were to
people, I'm direct person.
even if they were to try to compel me to give them up, all I have is that pseudonymous email address and their Oprah machine account. So yes, it can be done anonymously. However, I would caution you, sometimes the clerk will push back with anonymous requests because there is. We had an article in the New Jersey Law Journal about Oprah Machine where the author was somewhat critical of us because of this, and I actually published a response on our site, responding to some of his arguments. But basically, this attorney's contention was, because there's a provision of Oprah that says if you're a convicted felon, you can't request records on your victims. I don't have a problem with that. We shouldn't have people getting harassed by felons, if they are a victim of that crime. Certainly, I am sensitive to that issue. But what will happen is we've seen some clerks try to twist that around and act like the sky is falling, and this is such a large problem. And in fact, it's never been an issue. We've never had a convicted felon that I'm aware of have an incident that was brought to our attention as an Oprah machine user. So I think this was kind of the bias of their perspective. They were writing from that perspective as a municipal attorney, and that's why they wrote the way they did. But that's the only pushback that you may run into if you do an anonymous request. They might try to assume that you're a convicted felon and try to make you certify one way or another that you're not. So that's really the only thing to be cognizant of when making anonymous requests.
Yeah.
Yes?
Going back to your complaint about fees. I had a situation in Waretown where they told me they could not give me a particular item I asked for under Oprah unless I paid, let's say $85. I don't remember what the fee was.
Right.
But I could go and look at it. Is that legal? Or, you had a complaint, you filed a complaint and you won.
Yes.
So are they exerting some sort of pressure? Because it was a big document, I think it was a site plan or something.
Yeah, how many, so it was a site plan, like one of those big pieces of paper? Yeah. I would have to see the specific context of the request and the exact way you worded it, because, the case I was in court for yesterday, actually, I was talking about how they didn't want to give up those Facebook records, and they wanted a $200 fee for it. So there's certain criteria in which they can charge a fee. So like one of them is if there's a, quote, substantial manipulation of technology where they have to do a bunch of work converting it, or, if it is very voluminous, if it's a lot of documents. But we have requests. The great thing about Oprah Machine is we can go back and we can see how other towns are responding to these requests to see, hey, is it fair what Waretown did in that circumstance? And if I recall, we do have site plans that were requested to our site. I guess the challenge that they can say, I'm not intimately familiar with the capabilities of Waretown and their building department, but they might try and say, this is such a big document, the site plan, we don't have a scanner that can scan it in. I'm just trying to think what they might say.
Well, they would have done it for the fee.
Yeah,
I chose not to pursue it at that point.
yeah, I think it probably would be, I would have to see, I'm hedging a little bit because I don't wanna guarantee you something without looking at it myself and seeing the context of it. But, I think, if it's just one site plan or one building application that you're looking for, it seems like it would be pretty reasonable for you to get that without a fee. And a lot of the time what they'll do is, it's kind of a way of calling your bluff in a way, because they'll pray that you're being ignorant. You'll think, oh my goodness, this is such a big fee. This isn't worth the trouble. I'll just go away. And that's what they thought I was going to do in Lacey, but I didn't. So that's where they pay to actually call their bluff and take it on court. But back to Nancy's question with the anonymous, not to change topics. One thing that's really important to note: if you want to file a lawsuit, there are no anonymous Oprah lawsuits in the state of New Jersey. So, if you do actually want to go and challenge it and sue, you're going to have to out yourself as that anonymous person that made the request. So that is one item to be aware of if you feel like it's going to be something that's a political hot potato that they're going to want to keep the lid on. That you're going to end up having a challenge. But for one document, for one site plan like that, I would be interested to see what their specific reasoning is. How they tried to justify that fee, either because it's a high volume of information or because of the technology aspect of it or the labor involved. But as long as that's why I recommend people to keep your requests as narrow as possible. If you can make it narrow, you'll probably get it quicker, and nothing is stopping you from starting out with one narrow request, and you can do a few follow-up requests if there's something interesting. So like, for example, when people request emails, what I recommend that they do is pull that email log first that shows the inbox of all the messages they've been sending and receiving, and then instead of asking for a bunch of emails where they might say, oh, this is hundreds of pages that we have to review and redact, you can just say, I want this email from this date. I want this email from that date between this person and another person. And that's one way that you can get around fees. Also, some clerks, what they might try and do is, they're stuck in the 20th century, and they might try and say, oh, we'll give you the documents, but you're going to have to come into town hall and pick them up and then pay us 5 cents a page to get them on paper. So,
Actually,
yeah.
I think Waretown does that too.
But
They said it was free if they sent it electronically.
Yes, that's why you always want to make sure you get it electronically, because, provided that it's not one of those rare cases where a special service fee is going to apply, and they're going to have to do some sort of extraordinary effort. For 90% of the records that you'd be requesting, this really shouldn't be something that applies. But a lot of the times you get government agencies that are either ignorant of the law or, in some of the worst situations, they're trying to put up roadblocks, barriers to public access. They'll throw that fee demand out there, either to try to get money out of you or to make you go away, which often ends up having the same effect.
But legitimately they can't.
Yeah, in most cases they can't, but if you go and say, hey, give me 10 years worth of emails or something, and they have to get stuff out of storage, a lot of the times it depends on the context of the request, how much information you're requesting, and of course, there's that legal standard of whether it requires a substantial manipulation of technology. So the case I was talking about before, the borough in this particular town, they said, because you want screenshots of our Facebook page, we want a $200 fee so you can see who we banned from our Facebook page. And they actually put 2 IT consultants up on the stand to say, this is what we have to do, we have to do all this stuff. And I got up there and I said, oh no, you don't. You only need to go, here's to the ban page, here's the list of the blocked words, and it should take you 3 minutes to do this, not 2 hours. So a lot of the times it's their opinion versus your opinion, and somewhere in the middle we'll have the truth. But a lot of the times, this is a very liberally construed law, the way the courts have interpreted it. So a lot of the times they will come down on your side. So sometimes, we had a situation down the Pineland School Board. There's been a lot of activity down there with some of the requests. Their records custodian tried to say, oh, we won't produce all these email logs without a fee. And the particular user that submitted the request, they were very educated about their rights, and they were able to go back and respond and say, hey, you can't charge me this fee. I want the records electronically. They're not voluminous. Give me the records. And after that, they actually gave them all the emails they were looking for without a fee. And we have examples of that on Oprah Machine that you can look up. If you go on Oprah Machine in the search box and you type in special service fee, you can see all the examples of some people, they demanded the fee and they just gave up. They didn't follow up for whatever reason. Some people, they pushed back, they got the records. Other people, it ended up going to litigation, and they were able to resolve it that way. So it's definitely an interesting area, because what they will try to do, and Janet, is they will, in some of the less transparent government agencies, they will use that fee as a basis to try and stop you.
So I just found the email, $53.80 to copy it, because it was 16 pages, and she said, and she's very helpful, actually, usually. The site plans are too large to copy, scan, and will have to be sent out for copying. Please submit $53.80 for copies of the site plan, 16 pages. Once payment has been received, I can then copy some of the plans will be sent out for copy. You can come to the office to review the site plan. Now, here's my thought on this.
Yes.
You're gonna charge me $53.80, and I just let it go for the time. I said, well, we'll hold off for now.
Right.
To copy them, you could probably get them scanned at the same time, and then you would have an electronic record of the site plans. Right? So the whole thing is a little
They don't want to give you
foggy.
that sort of
CAD machine or something?
because they don't have his files.
Yeah, but I didn't ask for the hard copies. They can make that electronic. Okay.
And that's the thing, like a lot of the smaller towns, they might, like some of the larger towns with the bigger building departments, they might have that large format scanner to do it.
Right.
And that's, again, it's very context sensitive, If they're saying it had to be sent out like that, I would go back and I would say, well, if you're gonna have to send it out, can you give me documentation of the actual cost that you're gonna incur? Because they can't just bump up the price to some arbitrary figure.
Right.
What they're allowed to do, like say you weren't doing it electronically and you wanted to go in and pick up like a disc of the record. They can't charge you $50 for the disc. They can only charge you the actual cost of that individual disc for like $1 or something.
Right.
So, I guess, if they come back and they say, we don't have the capability to scan this, we don't have this, then, it may be a little bit different. But, it all comes down to the context of what their capabilities are, how much you're asking for, and other stuff like that. It wouldn't hurt to go, you can go on Open Machine, look at some of those examples for site
I
plans.
will, and then this issue is not ended, so maybe I'll ask again for permission and see what happens. Thank you.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
I think we should all go on and make the open question.
Every one of us. I would encourage you to. So with that, do we have any other questions? Yes.
You were talking about interns that you have working for you. How
Yeah.
much is that you have?
Right now, it's just yours truly. We had one or two interns that worked with us over the winter.
Are they Stockton?
No, one of them was she was a senior at Pinelands High School, and she's going to be going to Rowan University this coming semester in the fall. And her assignment was to work on our school update project. So what we're doing is, in order to get an agency added to Oprah Machine, we need the email address for their records custodian. So what we did is we had her go county by county and compile all these lists for us. And she was very helpful. We were able to get Burlington, Atlantic, and a few of the counties up in North Jersey added. And we're actually going to be putting out, if you guys know of any college or high school students, political science students that might be interested, we're going to be putting out an announcement for new interns for this coming summer. We would love to work with some more younger folks to get them involved. It certainly would be a good experience because you can get hands-on experience in technology and data science, because what we're doing now, we're also going to be looking for people with a technology and development background, because we're compiling, as all these open requests are processed, we are compiling data on them So we can produce statistics for every town and county in our system. We can say, for Waretown, here's the percentage of requests that are answered within 7 days. Here's the percentage of requests that take longer. Here's how many requests that they've denied since 2017. Here's how many requests that have been successful since 2017. And we're going to kind of use that to get an idea of the big picture. What is the state of Oprah compliance in New Jersey? And we are the only platform that is collecting this data that will objectively show whether they are fulfilling their obligations under the law. So that is something, we're working actually with a statistician down in Atlantic County. He's been crunching some of the numbers for us. So, we're looking for a diverse array of interns and other stakeholders to help us roll out the site further. So we will be putting some announcements out about that. If you're interested, I can even send it to you, Pat. If you might know of anybody that might be interested in working with us, I really appreciate it. Yes?
I just wanted to say how impressed I am with everything that you do.
Oh,
And
thank you.
I don't dare ask you what you do with your future. And you're so young, that's amazing. Thank you.
Well, thank you. Yeah, well, I'll tell you, in my free time, actually, I am in the process of building a new app. I'm building an app that's actually based off of Oprah data, and my app is going to be called 911 Maps. And what we're doing is we're pulling data from the sheriff's office in Toms River on every 911 incident that happens in Ocean County. Not the individual details, but just the general nature of the call. And what we're going to be doing is, this is actually what I'm going to go to grad school for. I'm going to hopefully do my thesis on it. We're going to actually make heat maps to pinpoint all of the worst areas for opiate overdoses in Ocean County. We're working with students at Ocean County College and addiction counselors. So we are going to use Oprah data to revolutionize the fight against addiction by pinpointing all of these areas that are hotspots. And then we're going to have addiction counselors look at this, and as they're helping their clients, they'll be able to see, oh my goodness, this is where you're living. You're right where there was 3 overdoses last week. And we have over 17,000 incidents that we've collected so far. I've been teaching myself computer programming to do this in my spare time. And this is going to be our next project that we roll out. And I hope to have a proof of concept out very soon. Ironically, Toms River is already fighting us on releasing the data for this. They don't want us to have it. So we're going to be in court on July 17th to fight them. I do. What I also did too, I'll give you a little bit of background. The reason I love court so much, I actually, while I was in Stockton, I served as a teaching assistant for constitutional law and civil liberties. And I worked for an amazing woman. Her name was Dr. Linda J. Morton. And if you're familiar with, I'm sure everybody here knows what Roe v. Wade was, how important that case was. Dr. Morton actually litigated the follow-up case to Roe v. Wade when they wanted to gut it in the 90s, Planned Parenthood v. Casey.
No.
And I worked for her for this past semester. She really was just an inspirational person to work for. And, I was going to go to law school, but then I realized we have enough lawyers in New Jersey. I'd rather work with technology and politics instead.
Well, we're active.
Thank you. Yes, yeah, go ahead.
Did you write an article about an elder law attorney in Ocean County?
I did, yeah, you're talking about Mr. Novi.
I looked it up. I'd like to talk to you.
Oh my goodness, yeah.
But not the source.
For everything, I mean, you mentioned it briefly at the beginning, but everything I learned when I moved here or got involved in politics, that I learned about Ocean County politics, was from this site, ocpolitics.org.
Politics, let's see that.
Politics, yeah. And you backed away from it, but read, go browse through that.
I responded.
Go read that, that's where I got my education
Wow.
on Ocean County politics.
Excellent. Yeah, I mean, that really is such a good word.
And I love what you're doing, but I hope someday you go back to that. You were the only source for local news, really, truly.
Well, thank you. That's why I kept going. The problem is, we are in a real crisis in this country for the sustainability of journalism. Because, as I'm, getting ready to go out on my own feet, and build out these projects, if you look at dying publications like the Asbury Park Press, that are living off of advertising dollars that are just not going to be there in 10 years. That business model of corporate advertising supported news, that's a dead-end business model. And what has to happen, we need to find sustainable models for funding journalism, either through nonprofits or partnering, with different organizations, because I would have loved to take Ocean County politics and bring on a staff and bring on other people to write. But I was writing all those articles, while I was living down in Stockton, actually finishing my education when I was back here on the weekends. And I really enjoy writing. It's something I like to do a lot. But for me to write one article, I will be sitting for hours, researching, writing, editing. A lot of my articles that I've written, I would drive myself crazy going through 50 different drafts of it, because we're all involved in politics here. We know if I were to even tie my shoes wrong, the Republicans would be out with a press release saying, "Oh, Davin Rossi was wrong. His article is fake news. Don't listen to him." But thank you. I do appreciate that.
That's great, so.
Do we have any additional questions?
When is your book gonna be published?
That's a great question. I am working on it each day. As you can imagine, I get pulled in a lot of different directions with all of these projects. If you go on my website, davinrossi.com, I have a contact form at the bottom of my site. If you'd like to just fill out that contact form, say you're interested in the book, I'm putting together an email list of people that are interested. Actually, better yet, I'll just take this paper. If anybody is interested in learning more about my book, I'm going to leave this on the table up front, and you can fill out your email address, and I'll add you to the list, and I will notify you all when it's published. I'm hoping to do maybe a launch event in the near future once it's published, but there is still some work to be done. I'm just going through what we're going to do, actually. The structure of the book, we're going to have strategies for requesting records, some background about Oprah, and then every single one of the examples that we cover, we're going to have an index at the front where you can look at just the type of category of records that you're interested in researching, and you can flip to that page, and we're going to have real examples from Oprah Machine with context, analysis, and explanation that I'm compiling. So this will be a very powerful tool for activists, for political campaigners, for individuals, and even business owners that use this data to provide value to their customers. So I appreciate your interest, and we'll have that sign-up sheet for people to fill out so you can get more information.
Wow. Thank you.
Yeah.